Good evening and good morning to everyone. I am Bhikkhu Sophea on Buddhasāsanā program of CBMS, the Cambodian Buddhist Monk Society in USA, broadcasting from Long Beach, California. Today, we are going to talk about the Four Noble Truths. But before we begin, let me start by paying homage to the Triple Gem, the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, with my high respect. And at the same time, also would like to pay respect to all venerable monks around the world, and my respect to all people who are watching this program. Welcome to Buddhasāsanā program, and especially to venerable monks here, Venerable Seng Yeath from Boston, Massachusetts, and Venerable Dhammapala from Des Moines, Iowa. So thank you for joining us to discuss on this topic. As you all know, that most of the Buddhist people are very familiar with these Four Noble Truths. But for those non-Buddhists, might not be familiar with this topic. So we want to explore and explain and share the perspective on this topic. As you all know that the Four Noble Truths is the heart of the teachings of the Buddha. So it is important for all of us to try to understand, so we could adapt our life with the difficult situation that we are facing every day, especially during this pandemic. So once again, welcome and thanks to both of you for joining us. So I would like to start with Venerable Dhammapala first, as you are very expert in talk with you on this topic. So we are going to discuss in this Dhammacakka Bhavatana Sutta, so which is mentioned the Four Noble Truths, and we will go further on the Eightfold Path. So we can share. So first of all, what can you tell us, and what are those Four Noble Truths that you would like to share to the people? How can ordinary people like us understand these Four Noble Truths, and how important it is to every one of us to pick it up and put into practice? So could you please share with us? Thank you, Venerable Bhante Dhammapala.
I missed a lot of that. It's kind of breaking.
Oh, maybe
the four.
Yeah. Maybe you can just say the meaning of the Four Noble Truths and describe how important it is for all of us. Thank you.
Yes, the Four Noble Truths. As you said, the Four Noble Truths are the heart of the Buddhist teaching. And the first Noble Truth, I explain them as four facts. They are factual, they are objective. Anyone can check them out. It doesn't require any belief. It's knowledge. You can check this for yourself, and I encourage you to do so. The first Noble Truth is the Noble Truth of, I'm going to use some Pali words here, and then I'll translate them into English. The first Noble Truth is the Noble Truth of dukkha. And as with many Pali words, they have many different ways to translate them to English. The most common translation for dukkha is suffering. But that, to me, is not the best. I prefer to say that dukkha is dissatisfactoriness. That we have times in our lives that our life is less than satisfactory. And that can vary from a little bug flying around that you wish would go away to a serious illness like COVID-19 or cancer, or being involved in a serious automobile wreck, very serious pain and suffering. So dukkha is a word that encompasses, it includes a whole range of dissatisfactoriness with life. The second noble, and I can talk for hours on dukkha. The second noble truth is the cause of this dissatisfactoriness, the cause of dukkha. And what is so profound and so simple at the same time is that dukkha is natural. It's not something that has befallen us because of something like some god or gods punishing us, or it's part of our human nature. When we're born, well, I'll say two words: avidya and tanha. Avidya is unwisdom. It's often translated as ignorance and delusion. Tanha literally means thirst, but it's thirst as in the sense of emotionally charged desire, thirst in the sense of craving. It is an attachment to the object of desire, an emotional attachment most generally. And when babies are born, they have no knowledge, they have no wisdom. They're in a state of total avidya, total ignorance. And tanha rules their total existence. I want this, I want that, I want it now. And if I don't get it, then I'm going to throw a temper tantrum. I'm going to fuss and scream and cry and maybe pound the floor and kick my heels. So this is part of human nature. This is the way we are at birth. And the third noble truth is that we can, through discipline, through practice, through techniques, if you want to call it that, we can gain in knowledge and wisdom. And we can get over ourselves. We can learn to delay, postpone, or even just totally abandon this striving for self-gratification. The fourth noble truth, and again, these are all facts, they can be checked out. The fourth noble truth is that discipline. It's the Noble Eightfold Path. And there are 8 aspects to it, and it's really very simple. You can sit down and in 15 minutes memorize all 8 of the aspects of the Eightfold Path. It's elegant in that sense. However, when you begin to study and you begin to practice and you begin to live a life that has you on the Eightfold Path, it becomes very profound. It just opens up whole realms of understanding.
Thank you. Thank you, Venerable. So, I want to go a little bit details in this, as you have mentioned about the unsatisfactoriness.
Yes.
It is a part of a human natures.
Yes.
But, I would like to turn this question to Venerable Dr. Seng Yeath to explore on this, the first one, the dukkha. As sometimes we as a human being, we don't want to accept it, because like every time we experiencing suffering or unsatisfactoriness in our life, we just want, no, I don't want it, I just want to push it away. But by rejecting the unsatisfactoriness, by denying it without opening our heart to understand its natures, and it's going to be difficult for us to overcome it. So I would like to ask Venerable Seng Yeath to explain. So as in Buddhist perspective, how can we accept? I mean, like as an ordinary people, accept the dukkha that it is part of our life. Sometimes we experience it. Sometimes we, in a matter of time, it's gone and then it come back again. So in order to prevent it from its severity, what can we, as a Buddhist or as a Buddhist follower, how can we put this into understanding? Thank you. So could you please share with us your perspective on the first dukkha? Thank you.
My respect to the most venerable monks here, and the Four Noble Truth is touched in the sutra called Dhammapala Sutra. It is the first sutra preached by the Buddha after a long time of his struggling in samsara. So just after the enlightenment, he declares he preached the sutra to his associates, whom we know as five Panjavakiya Bhikkhu. And these five people were the person who listened to this sermon, this preaching. And the Four Noble Truth is a core teaching of the Buddha, which he told to the five bhikkhus, saying that this is the reality of life that human beings are facing. And when we are talking about the truth, it is not about whether we accept it or not, because this is the reality. And in these formulas, there are four of them, which Venerable Dhammapala already explained it, so I don't want to go into detail about it. I just want to focus on the first dukkha, the first truth, which we know that it is called the truth of dukkha. The Buddha clearly touched that in this life there is a dukkha, and I'm not going to go into detail how we can translate the word dukkha in English, because I'm not a native speaker. Venerable Dhammapala might have a better understanding than me, but we can learn this term from the Pali words, the son of Pali that we came across. Dukkha is something which is not happy, which Venerable Dhammapala termed it as unsatisfactoriness. But at the same time, the word dukkha is explain about the process of ever-changing the situation in our life. Something which is changing is called dukkha, and the other meaning is something which is not happy, which is not satisfactory, is called dukkha. And answering to your question, whether the human beings accept it or not, it is not the question, because this is a part of our life. Whether we like it or we call it or we accept that reality or not, it doesn't matter. For example, the nature of fire is hot. Whether you agree that the fire is hot or cool, it doesn't matter. But if we touch the fire, it is hot. So in this truth, the Buddha taught that in this life there is a dukkha. And in that sutra also he mentioned 12 kinds of dukkha. Start with jati, jara, jati, and marana. And in that he termed in Pali as soka, pariteva, dukkha, which I can use in English term as something is not happy, which had been explained in different terms. But the word dukkha itself is denoted something which is not happy. So the first thing, as a Buddhist, as a practitioner, it would be a great failure for us if we cannot accept that this life is changing and facing the uncertainties or the unsatisfactoriness. This is the starting point of the practice. If we fail to understand that this life is under the nature of changing or under the nature of unsatisfactoriness, that is the failure of the practice. So this is my answer, sir.
Thank you so much. So whenever Dhammapala, as whenever Dr. Johnson Yeath has mentioned about this dukkha, it is not a matter of accepting this dukkha or not, but it is the reality within everyone's mind. So as a Buddhist, how can we train our mind? You know, how can we train our mind? You know, when it's not whether you accept it or not. You know, because it's there. So how, as a Buddhist, how can we train our mind to live with this kind of dukkha, so we can have more power than it's than dukkha's power that run over us. So what can you share with us, and how can we train our mind to live with this?
Well, the training of the mind is the practice, the putting into everyday life of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right knowledge. We need to examine what is being presented to us. Is it true? Is it factual? Is it correct? Right intention or right aspiration. Dukkha is the problem. And so as we act, as we speak, is our intention to reduce or minimize dukkha or not? Right speech. We need to speak factually. We need to refrain from saying that which is not true. We need to refrain from speaking badly about other people, about just good practice, good communication skills. When someone says something, make sure that we understand that what they said and what we heard are the same. So, and right action, the five, beginning with the five moral precepts. Right lifestyle, right livelihood, right effort. We have to make the effort. And here's where most people think about what is Buddhist practice. And that is samasati and samasamadhi, right mindfulness and right samadhi. And I'm going to speak a little bit about samadhi in a moment, but right mindfulness is just paying attention, being aware, being keenly aware, really bringing our attention down to a single focus. And we practice this by focusing on the breath. We sit comfortably and easily and close the eyes. We bring our attention to our breathing. We train our mind to focus by focusing on the breath. And, then our mind wanders away, as natural behavior is something we hear, something we and goes to that. We have a thought, and then we come back to the breath. That's samasati, right mindfulness. Samasamadhi. Samadhi is one of those words that it's very rich in meaning. It has multiple understandings. Samadhi is both a practice and a state of being. And it's often translated as right concentration or right absorption or right meditation. But to give you an example of the state of being of samadhi, some folks have been so involved in reading a book that everything else is out of their consciousness. They're only reading the book. And then somebody walks in and slams a door, and they have this startled response because they were so focused, they were absorbed, they were concentrated on that book. We first learn to be mindful, and part of that is learning to relax and to focus, and then we can begin to pay attention to the space between thoughts, to the silence between words, and begin to pay attention to what is not generally an object of consciousness. And ultimately, the state of samadhi is the state of consciousness without an object, awareness without an object of awareness. It's just pure consciousness or pure awareness. And this is a practice. You need to practice all 8. Just doing one is not sufficient. It's necessary, but not sufficient. And you need a guide. You need someone to help you see your way along the path.
Yes, yeah. So yes, thank you very much for bringing up the Eightfold Path. So it is important for all of us as a Buddhist practitioners to uphold, to practice this Eightfold Path, because it is the only way, the only path that leads us to happiness. So I would like to turn another question to Venerable Yonsei Yeath on the second one. The cause of dukkha. The cause of dukkha I can put into the 3 things, the 3 evil acts that generally cause dukkha. The 3, I can just put it the 3 poisonous. The greed, the hatred, and the delusions. This is we don't. I don't want to go too broadly, but this is very simple. That greed and hatred and delusion. This could be a main cause of suffering. So, as a Buddhist practitioner, or in the Buddha's teaching, how can we suppress this? These evil acts, or these 3 things that could help us to sustain our happiness. Because if we do not know how to suppress this greed, hatred, when we sometimes we just easily get angry, and then that will cause a lot of suffering to us. So I want you to explain as a Buddhist practitioner and as a general understanding, how can we reduce these 3 things in order to sustain our happiness, in order to overcome this kind of dukkha? So thank you. So can you help to share with us? I can hear you. Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay, now okay, I can hear you now.
Okay. We are living with the attachment, the tanha, the defilements, meaning that this defilement is part of us, is within us, so we cannot suppress it. But the best way is to live along with it with a very effective remedies, which have been explained clearly by Venerable Dhammapala just now, with the practice of the Eight Noble Path. And it is very hard for us as Patuchana, as an ordinary person, either because even though we are monks, we are still Patuchana, we are still ordinary person in terms of the practice. We are not Arahanta, we are not the noble person who had attained a very high stage of practice. But I can share a very simple practice with the audiences, especially the one who is aspire to practice the Buddha's teaching. The first thing that we must accept is this life is full of suffering, but it is not. We are living with everyday suffering because this life is made up of the attachment. So there is no way that we can get rid of ourselves. So first thing, we have to accept that. And second thing is the cause of the suffering, which had been termed in the Four Noble Truths as samudaya, tanha. You raise a question of how we can face, how we can reduce this hatred, this illusion. And we do have a way to practice in order to live with this attachment. So the practice of the Noble Eightfold Paths, which explained by Venerable Dhammapala, is the recommended or the path that taught by the Buddha. So I don't want to repeat it, Venerable Sir, because the audience already listened to the Venerable Dhammapala of what are the Noble Eightfold Paths.
Okay, Thank you so much. So yes, the one of the things that uh, we can reduce this kind of dukkha is through our right understanding and right speech, and on observing our actions, and more importantly observing our thoughts, because it is the core of producing our actions that could lead to suffering. So Venerable Dhammapala in Dhammacakka Pavatana Sutta, the Buddha has mentioned about two things. I want to bring it out here: the Kamasukhalakana Yoko and the Atmathana Yoko. So the first one, the Kamakhalakana Yoko, is pleasures. People are not generally, we think that uh, pleasures is the core of giving us the happiness. But at the same time, for those a serious practitioner, like the Buddha before he got enlightenment, he tortured himself uh, in order to burn out these defilements, the desire for 6 years, and then he realized that torturing ourselves, torturing our body, one help us to get enlightenment. So about these two things. So Venerable Dhammapala, what can you tell us? What can you share with us on these Dhammacakka Suttas? These two things, and so it's important for all of us. Sometimes we want. Sometimes people go extremely on torturing ourselves. Some people are wants only pleasures through their sensuality, that they think that this is the ultimate one. But how can we walk into the middle path of this? How can you put this into understanding in a simple way? Thank you, Venerable Dhammapala. Can you share with us? Thank you.
Well, very simply, how we do it is we do it. We make a commitment to do it. My PhD is in psychology, so I tend to use psychological terms sometimes, but it's well known in Western thought. For 3,000 years, it's been well known in Western thought that this drive for self-gratification that I mentioned, tanha, if you will, we strive for pleasure and we avoid pain. Well, the one of the insights of the Buddha was that we can strive for pleasure and strive for pleasure and strive for pleasure, and we can get pleasure. We can have pleasure every day. Life is filled with moments of dukkha, but there's also moments of sukha, moments of happiness, moments of satisfactoriness. But as was pointed out, they are temporary. They are transitional. They arise, they abide a while, and then they go away. And so if we try to make them permanent, we try to use these external sources to attain permanent pleasure, we're going to fail. We're doomed. It doesn't work. And too many people say, well, I'll just settle for what I can get, and that's not good enough either. The other teaching is that this life of asceticism, this self-mortification, this denial of food, of clothing, of shelter from the weather, of medical care, that's not good either. That was was and still is a practice in many of the world's faiths, Hinduism, and there are Christian ascetics, but that doesn't work either. And I think it's important to note that this total immersion in self-denial, in trying to burn out the hatred and delusion, and just trying to do it without some plan, without some program, work. Seeking pleasure without some understanding of the nature of pleasure, that doesn't work. And I just have to come back to the Noble Eightfold Path. That works.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. So it's a very simple that, if we remember those eightfold paths and dealing with our daily activities, so we could understand it. So now I would like to that.
It's simple, but it's not easy. We have to
Yes,
make the effort.
but I know, like, mostly we can talk a lot. I mean, like, days and night, but when put those things into practice, it's extremely difficult because sometimes our mind is not strong enough to face the reality, and it often drags us into bad situation when we are facing this reality. So whenever you're saying yet, the third one, the cessation of suffering or cessation of dukkha. This is the third of the Four Noble Truths. I would like to touch a little bit on this. How can we understand it? What can you explain to us the cessation of suffering? How can we end it? I mean, like, of course, it's going to be like the Eightfold Path again, because it is the only. But how can you explain it to people, to our audiences, into a simple way? And how can we put those practices into practice by understanding this teaching of the Buddha? Thank you. Can hear you.
Can you hear me, sir?
Okay.
The Four Noble Truth is the formula promulgated by the Buddha, and which he taught to the humanity, that this is the formula which we can use it in order to understand what is going on in our life. Because these Four Noble Truths bear two fruits. One thing, if we understand it and we know how to use it effectively, we will be able to attain a happiness. But if we cannot understand these Four Noble Truths, then it is impossible for us to walk out of these sufferings, this unhappiness. So this Four Noble Truth is a formula which we have already spent, I think, maybe 20 minutes together, talk about. The first one is dukkha. There is a misunderstanding, especially not only in the West, but only in the East too, that some people saying that Buddhism teaches only about the suffering. If we practice Buddhism, this religion teach only suffering. Actually, no. Life is not only suffering. Life is about getting off the suffering and understanding about the suffering. So that is the first truth, dukkha. The second one is samudaya. Buddha said, the Buddha saying that the first thing, if we understand the dukkha, then we must understand what is the reason why there is a dukkha, why there is a unsatisfactoriness, why there is unpleasantness. So the second one is the Buddha teach us to find out what's the root cause of the problem. Let's say dukkha is problem. Then now in our life there is a problem, and then the Four Noble Truth, the second one is to understand what is the root cause of the suffering, and the third one is, in order to end this suffering or reduce this suffering, it is called the cessation of suffering, dukkha nirodha Ariya Satya. And again, once again, I turn to the Noble Eightfold Paths. This is a very simple understanding, but people must try to understand it. We cannot just see it and understand it. People just, first thing, very simple. Don't try to make it complicated. First, we must accept that this life is full of suffering. It means that something is changing in our life. Second one, there is a reasons that leading to the suffering. This suffering happened because there are some root cause of it. Suffering cannot happen without the root cause of which we call it the samudaya. And the third one, this suffering can be ended, meaning that there is a way to cessation of the suffering. So the Buddha clearly tell us that the suffering in our life can be ended, can be eradicated. So the third one is must understand, we must accept that this suffering can be eradicated without turning to the external force. Like some people believe that our life is controlled by someone outside in the outside of the earth or living in the universe, blah blah blah. But the Buddha say no, this suffering must be eradicated by ourselves. We must accept that. We must accept that. And it is true, because the Buddha is the one who already came across it, who already walked that path and achieved it. So he said that this suffering can be stopped, can be ended by ourselves. So this is the understanding of the third suffering, which you tell me. Some people, when there is something wrong in our life, they turn to other they turn to other forces for help. But the Buddha say no, that is not the way. We must accept that if there is something wrong in our life, we ourselves is the one who put it to an end. So this is the meaning of the third suffering, the cessation. And the Buddha clearly explained in the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta that there is no anything which happen without cause, because there must be something. There must be a cause which leads to that suffering, leads to that happiness, or lead to that issue, lead to that troubles, and that trouble can be eradicated. So this is a very simple understanding. Don't try to turn it to turn to other beings or unseen beings or mighty gods or whatever. He said that this is our work, our duties to earn it by ourselves, and we can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable, for your explanation. It was very clear, and I also want. Let me continue with you, Dr. Venerable Dhammapala. So, because this Venerable Yangtze has explained about the cessation of the dukkha, and now I'm curious, on this. How can we develop our right understanding? Mostly when we experience suffering. For example, here, the pandemic, we are trying to put the blame. We are trying to accuse people. We are trying to, slander to someone else that this particular person is creating suffering to me. Usually, through our six senses, ayatana, we, for without thinking carefully, we immediately putting a blame on others. This person, that person. It's not just the pandemic, but in our daily life. Sometimes we experience suffering, and we don't look inside ourselves, and we usually, look for the outsider. Blaming the others things that causes suffering. So how can we develop? I just in the Western perspective, how can we develop our right understanding? To all of this, in order to understand the real cause of our suffering, that then we can put an end to it. So can you share with us this right understanding? Thank you.
Yes. I'll use an analogy here. What is the cause of fire? Well, we have three factors, three things that cause fire. We must have fuel. We must have oxygen, and we must have some source of heat. So, to understand the cause of fire, we can go find a fire someplace, and we can take away the fuel, and the fire will go out. Or we can take away the oxygen by smothering it, and the fire will go out. Or we can build everything that's necessary for a fire, but not add the match, not add the source of heat. So the way we do it is by critically observing, critically thinking, and by comparing what we're seeing and hearing from other people, what other people say, what our experience in life is, comparing that with what is already known. If I walk into a house and there's a fire, I know from prior knowledge that if I can smother the fire, if I can get a fire extinguisher and put foam on it, the fire will go out. We have the fires of passion. So we need to be aware of our passions. We need to be aware of the consequences of our passions. Everything we do has consequences. Good consequences, bad consequences, neutral consequences. It doesn't matter. Everything we do has consequences. So we need to be aware. We're back to samasati, right mindfulness. But we need to apply right knowledge. We need to examine our intention. If I want to, okay, the opposite of intention is accident. Oh, I didn't intend that to happen. I didn't mean for that to happen. That was an accident. So if we're not living intentionally, we're living our lives accidentally. And we need to practice. Look at our heart. Look at our mind. What are we thinking? Look at our heart. What are we feeling? What is our intention? Look at our speech and our actions. Do those have dukkha suppressing, dukkha minimizing results, consequences, or do they set up the field for dukkha? It's a practice. We have to do it. We have to do it and do it and do it. And when we begin to do it, we begin to understand. I see how it works.
Thank you, Venerable, for your explanation. So I just would like to inform you that we have a few minutes left, and so lastly, I would like to give you each 1-2 minutes to share your perspective. So, what can we learn from this dukkha, this vulnerable truth, and as an ordinary people, how can we put it into practice, and how can we, how can we live with it? Generally, because like most of us, when we experience the unsatisfactoriness, sometimes we are, but for those whose mind is weak, we usually couldn't handle it. So I would like both of you to share your perspective on this, and how can you give your message of encouragement to the general people who might be experiencing suffering, or there are many different levels of suffering. So what would be the simple message from both of you? So I would like to start with Venerable Yeath first, and then Venerable Dhammapala. Thank you.
My humble suggestion to the practitioner is we don't need to practice the Vulnerable Truth for Nibbana. I think it's too hard for us as simple practitioners, but we can use these Vulnerable Truths to apply in our families, in our daily life. First thing, if there is something, there is problems, first thing that we must do is don't try to throw that problem to someone. We must accept that this is a problem. The second one, we must try to find out what is the root of this problem, what is the root cause that lead to these problems. And the third one is we must be sure that this problem, how we can eradicate or how can we tackle these problems. And the fourth one is find the ways how to do it. So this is a very simple formula which we can use it to apply in our daily life, and make sure that we are human beings and we are the one who master, who control our life. Don't try to find someone from outside worlds or the unseen beings to come into our life and to do things first. And there is no option for us to get out of this life because we have to live it. So the first thing, the most important thing is we must sail through these difficulties in life, and the process in this life itself also we can find a happiness. So don't try to see things as negatively, that this life is very difficult, this life is very hard, this life is full of suffering. No. And each and every life on earth share this almost the same similarities of how we are facing in our life. So my simple suggestion is face it by using these fundamental truths to apply in our daily life. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much. So now, Venerable Dhammapala, so what would be your message to the people? Thank you.
I would agree that we have a formula. It's a 4-part formula. And if we can approach every situation in life with that 4-part formula, that's a good start. But earlier I said it's important to have a guide. I think it's very, very important to have a teacher, to have someone who is knowledgeable and skilled in the practice, and to go to them and say, oh, I did this and I'm trying to do that, and can you help me refine my practice? There is a book, and it is the most popular book among Theravada Buddhists, and that book is called the Dhammapala. Dhammapada. The Dhammapada. That's
Okay.
me. No. And I would encourage people to, in whatever their native language is, whatever language they're most comfortable with, get a copy of the Dhammapada and start reading it. Read a verse or 2 or 5 every day, and then think about it. Use the 4-part formula of dukkha, the cause of dukkha, the cessation of dukkha, and the path that leads to it. The technique. Identify the problem. Identify the cause of the problem. Look around for what other people have used for solutions, and then apply that technique. But guide yourself with some reading. The Dhammapada is excellent. There's hundreds, thousands, perhaps, of good books out there if you want to have a good guide. If you want to do it the Buddhist way, practice all 8 of the Eightfold Path.
Thank you so much. Yes,
Thank you.
we can have the Dhammapala, a copy of it, because we are going to invite you for the next topic. We will discuss about it. So, Venerable Johnson, what would you add?
Can I say a
Yes,
few words? Yeah, very, very short one. Especially for our audience, for the lay people in particular, please don't try to live your life as a monastic life. This is a disaster.
Okay.
Yes.
Because for Buddhism, it's applicable to monastics as well as the householders. So please try to practice what is taught for the householders. And if you really want to live your life as monastic, be ordained and practice it. But don't try to mix up with these 2 way of life, because if we mix up these 2 way of life, monastic life with the household life, then it doesn't bear any result at all. This is a big misunderstanding for our practitioners. If you are a father, you are a mother, you are sons, please try to practice the way that it had been taught in Buddhism, how to be a good father, how to be a good mother, how to be a good children. This is the best practice recommended by the Buddha. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So it is, for me personally, it is an honor for me to have both of you on the show, on the talk, sharing knowledge to the people. So to the people, this is a Buddhasāsanā program, sharing knowledge from the CBMS. We thank you for watching this program, and this program are going to broadcast every Saturday at 5 p.m. in Californian times and 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. in Boston and in the Midwest. So join us again. We hope you all have a good day, and please stay safe and be mindful in living your life with this pandemic, because without mindfulness
yes.
you cannot live safely. So lastly, thank you again for watching with us, and may all of you be healthy and stay safe. Thank you so much. See you again. Venerable.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you, Venerable.